Year 3, and welcome to this week's home learning. This is our last week before half term, so we're going to get started today with our reading session, and we are starting a new text this week. It's a non-fiction text all about mountains, so it kind of links in with the geography, what we've been looking at, natural features of physical features of the world. So let me share my screen so that you can see exactly what we are doing today. Okay. Here we go. So I'm just going to share my screen. And sorry, bear with me. Let me just get that loaded. And we're doing our vocabulary lesson today. Here we go. So remember, for these words, I'm going to need you to repeat them after me. And you're also going to look in the corner and see the actions that I do with it. When you spot the word in a text, make sure you shout that word out, because that will really help you to remember it. So the text that we're looking at this week is called Earth's Changing Mountains. It's a non-fiction text all about mountains. We're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to tell you the word and you are going to try and guess the definition. So we're starting off with tectonic plates, okay? Tectonic plates. Tectonic plates are a huge piece of Earth's crust. If you imagine the Earth is like a boiled egg, and if you crack that egg into lots of different pieces, each of those large pieces are tectonic plates. They're very important because they help form mountains. We're going to go on to the next word now, so I'm going to introduce it to you. The word is called continent. Continent. Pause the video now and have a guess of the definition of the word continent. Continent. Okay, a continent is one of the world's 7 huge land masses. So all a continent is a huge area of land. It can also be defined as a collection of smaller countries. So for example, here we have the continent Africa, and inside the continent of Africa, you would have smaller countries like Ghana and Nigeria, Uganda, Botswana. Okay, so a continent is a huge mass of land, a huge area of land with lots of smaller different countries. Moving on to our next word, we have peaks. Peaks. Okay, pause the video now and have a guess. What do you think peak means? The word peaks, especially in the context of mountains. Pause the video now so that you can have a guess. Well, peaks are the pointed top of a mountain. You could say I climbed all the way to the top of the mountain peak and I could see the whole of the earth, which would probably be impossible from the top of a mountain peak. You'd have to go to space to see the whole of the earth. Next word is landscape. And for landscape, we're just going to do this. Landscape. Landscape. Now think of the picture. What do you think a landscape is? You may have also heard the word landscape used in art. Portrait landscape. What do you think a landscape is? Pause the video and have a guess. Okay, a landscape, all a landscape is natural scenery. Okay, so you might be painting a landscape of mountains. You may also paint a landscape of a beach. It's just natural scenery. Okay, so lots of natural physical features. Moving on. This is a very tricky word and it's called tourism. Tourism. Pause the video and have a guess. Look at the pictures. We've got lots of famous attractions. Tourist attractions. What do you think tourism is? Pause the video so that you can have a guess. Okay, so looking at these pictures to help you, you have the Statue of Liberty, you have the Eiffel Tower, Big Ben, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you have the Taj Mahal, you have, I can't remember what this is called, but it's in St. Petersburg, Russia. You've got lots of different tourist attractions. You've got the Christ the Redeemer in Brazil, which we actually looked at a few weeks ago in geography. Tourism is the business of organizing holidays and visits to places of interest. So tourism is a business. Okay, it's a type of business, and it's all about organizing holidays and visits to places of interest. For example, Tourism in England, in London in particular, might include visiting Big Ben. It might include visiting the River Thames. It might include visiting Tower Bridge. So lots of different things, but it's mainly about organizing holiday and visits to lots of different interesting places. Okay, we're going to move on to the next word. Molten, and for molten, we're going to go molten. Okay, molten. In fact, actually, I'm going to change my action. I'm going to do an explosion for molten. Molten. Pause the video and have a guess of what you think the word molten means. Okay, hopefully you've had a guess, and you've probably heard people say molten lava. Molten can be defined as melted. All it means is melted. Okay, it's turned into a liquid by heat. And in this case, we're talking about molten rock. Rock has been turned into liquid by heat. Very, very, very hot heat. Okay, we're talking about molten lava, which usually erupts from a volcano, which is a type of mountain. Okay, fantastic. So those are the words that we are going to be learning this week. So just to go through them all again, just to name them: tectonic plates. I say it, you repeat. Tectonic plates. Tectonic plates. Fantastic. Continent. Continent. Peaks. Peaks. And then we have landscape. Landscape. We also have, I don't think we did an action for tourism, but maybe we can pretend to do the Statue of Liberty and we can say tourism. Tourism, because it's all about visiting places that people would want to go to when they're on holiday. And molten, like a volcano exploding. Molten. Fantastic. Really good. So what we're going to do now is we are going to get the text ready. We are going to read it. You are going to join in at home, and I'm going to read this text to you. It is a non-fiction text, but just like you would do for a usual fiction story, you're going to use your reading finger to help you follow the words. You're also going to read with expression and intonation. That means sometimes your voice is going to go higher, sometimes your voice is going to go lower. Sometimes you may use a loud voice, at other times your voice may get quieter. You're going to vary the tone of your voice, okay? So I am going to start. And this text, the subheading is called What Are Mountains? What do you think of when you think of a mountain? Is it steep and rocky with daring climbers clinging to its sides as they slowly make their way to the top? Or is it full of grassy slopes where sheep graze and colourful mountain flowers grow? Whichever one you think of, you are right. A mountain can be both of these things and many others too. We're going to read the next section together, so I want you to join in with me for this next paragraph. All mountains are parts of the Earth's surface that stand high above their surroundings. Smaller rises are usually called hills. Some mountains are very steep and form high pointed peaks, one of our words, which is the top of a mountain. Others have a more rounded shape, though the top of these mountains may be just as high. I'm just going to stop there and explain what we've read. So they're talking about mountains, and they're talking about, you know, when you picture mountains, sometimes you imagine really mountains covered in grass or flowers, but mountains can also be covered in snow, as you can see from the picture below. Now, some mountains, smaller ones, are usually called hills, okay? But then some mountains are very tall with very pointed tops, and we call those peaks, which is one of our vocabulary words. Other mountains can be rounded at the tops. In this picture below of a mountain, it seems quite rounded at the top, but they can still be very, very high. I'm going to read this next paragraph by myself. A mountain may be a single peak, but mountains are often joined together in a mountain range. Some ranges have hundreds of separate peaks. When ranges are grouped together, they are sometimes called a mountain chain. So when you have lots of different mountains together, they are called a range. And then when lots of different ranges are joined together, they're called a mountain chain. And here we've got a fact. So when you can, in non-fiction books, you may see that there may be separate texts in a box. And this is just a fact. So we're going to read this fact. At 1,917 meters, Mount Washington is the highest peak in New Hampshire, USA, United States of America. This mountain is in the Presidential Range, which forms part of a larger White Mountains chain. They both belong to a mountain system called the Appalachians. I need to find out how to say that word properly. I will look that up. Okay, we're going to go on to the next page. This is called World of Mountains. And we are going to read this next part together. We're going to read this next paragraph together. There are mountains all over the world with major ranges on every continent. That's one of our key words. There is even a high mountain range in Antarctica, the icy continent that lies around the South Pole. It stretches 3,500 kilometers, which is nearly 2,200 miles across the frozen land. That is very, very long. You're going to read this fact by yourself at home. So I want you to pause the video now and restart it when you've read this fact. Okay. Hopefully you read that fact. Just to read it to you. This world map shows the location of the 10 longest mountain ranges. The longest of all is the Andes. And you can see the Andes over here, which stretches for 7,200 kilometers or 4,470 miles down the whole South America. Down the whole of South America. Its peaks form part of 7 different countries. Okay. I'm going to read this next part by myself, which is called Looking at Mountains. And if you want to pause the video, you can do and have a look at all the different mountain ranges that are in the different continents. Okay, looking at mountains. Mountains are formed in different ways and are shaped by wind and weather. There are many different kinds of mountains, including explosive volcanoes, which can cause major changes in the surrounding landscape. So in the surrounding landscape, remember the surrounding natural scenery, one of our key words. Let's read this part together. People live on, use and change mountains as well. In recent years, industry and tourism, well spotted, have had a great effect on many of the world's mountain ranges. In some places, this has brought problems. So what I would like you to do is just pause the video and have a think. What type of problems do you think can occur because of tourism, because of people visiting mountains and climbing on mountains? What kind of problems may occur as a result of that? Okay, we're going to turn to page 6 now, and this is called How Are Mountains Formed? Mountains are formed over long periods of time by the movement of rocks beneath the Earth's surface. This surface is part of our planet's rocky outer layer, which is called the Earth's crust. The crust is not one continuous layer, like the shell of an egg, but is broken into several huge pieces. We call these pieces tectonic plates. Remember one of our key words, tectonic plates, which are large pieces of rock that is broken up under the Earth's crust. Let's read this next paragraph together. Jigsaw of plates. Earth's plates fit together like a giant jigsaw, with the 2 sides of each plate close up against each other. The plates are not still, they are always moving, very slowly by a few centimeters each year. This means that some edges of the plates push against each other, and as they do, they buckle and bend at the edges. Over many thousands of years, this pressing and bending pushes mountains up to form the Earth's surface. And if I just show you, so what's happening with those tectonic plates is they are together like jigsaw pieces, and what they start to do is they start to overlap and push each other. And as they're pushing each other over thousands and thousands of years, they then form mountains and mountain peaks. Okay. So let's just, I don't know if you saw that I was talking about it being pushed up by the tectonic plates. So let's go back to our slides. Bear with me whilst I just get that back up for us. Okay. And we were reading on page 6, so we're just going to continue with that. And let's go all the way back. Sorry, I had to re-upload it again. Okay, so we were talking about the Earth's surface and the tectonic plates and how they form mountains. This next paragraph is on volcanoes. I'm going to read this to you, so I want you to listen with your listening ears. Beneath Earth's crust, there is a thick layer called the mantle. The rocks here are so hot that some of them have melted, making them runny like sticky toffee, some of your favorite desserts. In some places where there is one plate forced beneath another, the hot molten rock, molten, I hope you spotted that word, which means hot liquid rock, forces its way through a crack in the Earth's crust and forms an erupting volcano. Once it is on the surface, the molten rock cools and hardens again. If this goes on happening at the same spot for thousands of years, the rocks build up to form a volcanic cone or a mountain. When a volcano has not erupted for many years, it is said to be dormant or sleeping. After thousands of years, it may be called extinct or dead, but the mountains formed by these volcanoes still remain. So that's how volcanoes are formed, when molten rock, which is liquid rock, erupts and then cools down and it hardens. And if it keeps happening over time, it will form a volcano. Let's read this small fact together. This active smoking volcano lies on one of the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, USA. The islands are part of the Ring of Fire, which we're going to read about on the next page, page 7. Let's read this page together. So shifting around, I'm going to read this box and then we're going to look at the picture and then you're going to read this at home. Shifting ground, that's the subheading of this paragraph. There are lots of volcanoes around the edge of the Pacific Ocean. This circle of tectonic plate boundaries around the Pacific Ocean is called the Ring of Fire. So you can see the Ring of Fire is this orange, where the orange lines are. And that's where all the tectonic plates boundaries are. Throughout this whole area, erupting volcanoes change the landscape again. In 1980, for example, a volcano in the Cascade Range in Washington State, USA, erupted. A huge explosion blew 400 meters off the top of Mount St. Helens. The surrounding area was covered in volcanic ash and rock. Before that day, Mount St. Helens had been dormant for 123 years, which is a very, very long time. If you want to pause the video and have a look at the Ring of Fire, you can do. And then we're going to read this last bit together. This map shows the world's major plates, and we're talking about tectonic plates, not the plates you have in your kitchen. As the plates move very, very slowly, they change the shape of the continents and create mountains. There are mountain ranges on the ocean floor too. Can you believe that? There are mountains under the water in the oceans. A huge range called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge stretches right down the middle of Atlantic Ocean. Here, the plates are moving apart, allowing molten rock to force its way through and form mountains. Fantastic. And that is it for today. If you want to go back and have a read of that by yourself, you can do. Otherwise, we're now going to move on to our independent task, which is to match up the vocabulary to the definitions. The first definition I'm going to read to you, number 1, is turned into liquid by heat. What is the word? Is it tectonic plates, landscape, continent, tourism, peak, or molten? Number 2, pointed top of a mountain. Pause the video so you can answer those questions. Let's find the next definitions. This word means the business of organising holidays and visits to places of interest. And number 4 is the definition for natural scenery. Pause the video and answer those. Find the definitions. Number 5, one of the world's 7 huge land masses and a collection of smaller countries is called a Number 6, these things are a huge piece of the Earth's crust. Pause the video so that you can answer those questions. Fantastic. The first answer was molten. Number 2 was peak. Number 3 was tourism. Number 4 was landscape. Number 5 was continent. And finally, number 6 was tectonic plates. Thank you for watching this video and be sure to upload your work onto Seesaw. Bye, Year 3. See you in tomorrow's video.